Hey guys, so in this video we are going to talk a little bit about CSS Grid and why I think it's the first step on the road to having a complete overhaul on the way that we do application development. So let's get into it. Now, why am I so excited about CSS Grid? Why do I think that this thing that it seems so unimportant to so many of my colleagues, so many of my coworkers? And I argue it is because they don't understand what it represents. And for me, what CSS Grid represents is the first layout system that allows you to declare an interface that will literally give you the power that pretty much every designer using Sketch or Photoshop or anything of that nature has access to in order to make a nice layout. It is the closest thing that we have to closing that gap that has been there for so long between design and the web. Why is this important? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, this is important because that means that now the web has, for the first time, a layout system that feels fairly intuitive, it's fairly easy to access, and it gives you a lot of things for free. And if you combine this layout system with concepts such as, say, service workers, that allows you to do offline things, or basically create a web application that works offline, that means that the browser now, as an application platform, or as basically an application platform, has the same sort of potential as you would expect from a native application. Maybe even a little bit better, because the layout systems that you have in Android and iOS these days are nowhere near as nice as CSS Grid. Not by a long shot as nice. So, why is this so important? How can Frederick, how can you credit CSS Grid so much for this? What is in your mind? Well, I'm glad you asked. Think about this. Let's see if I can just walk you through it. What if Electron became the standard way of making desktop applications? Now, you've seen it already happen. My favorite code editor, Visual Studio Code, code editor, text editor, is made using Electron. And Electron, for those of you who may not know it, is based solely around web technologies, with a very nice interface between the native APIs of the device that you're actually running things on. And with a text editor, this is one of the more performance-heavy types of applications that you could build that is not a pure, like a game or something like that. Not saying that you're making something like a super heavyweight 3D game or anything like that. It's just a regular desktop application. Apart from that, one of the world's, if not the world's most popular chatting application, Slack, is also done using this technology. Which means that you have, if you think about it, at your fingertips, the potential to create something that Java has tried to do both in what was the old one? Swift? Or no, something like the old layout system. Java FX was the most recent one. And they have failed over and over trying to create a universal multi-platform desktop application framework that people like to use. CSS Grid, and it doesn't even have to be a service worker if you're using Electron, but with CSS Grid and Electron, you have a layout system that will work on any viewport, and you can basically port your web application, as I said, using service workers or so forth. You can get that entire layout into your desktop application. with a layout system that is nicer than anything I've seen on any native device. It runs in the browser and on the native application, native desktops, which means that it has something above everything else. It has a nicer development experience, it's consistent across all platforms, and it has the web. It's a web technology. That is something that you don't have anywhere else. Why is this important? People are already using Electron for these sort of things. And I say yes, absolutely they are. But what happens if, let's say, people start to realize that you can actually use the same concept. You can actually start thinking about making native mobile devices with this approach, using CSS Grid, for example. What if this idea that we kind of dismissed, because I honestly think that we kind of dismissed it, but with good reason, because we had this performance issue. And you may remember Cordova or PhoneGap and these type of hybrid applications that were web technologies, basically with a native app wrapper around it. Nowadays, people are all hyping React Native, which is it's a different take on this. But what I want to go and say is let's take it one further. Let's think about Electron's approach to solving this. What if we started approaching native device development with the same mindset? You have basically an application framework such as Electron that allows you to use web technologies with, say, service workers and so forth. What then? Why in the world would you use anything else? Well, you can make an argument that, well, an Android, and I think that React Native does actually have a good point here. React Native kind of has the philosophy that, an iOS device or an iOS user is going to have different requirements than that of an Android user, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think that it makes a nice experience to create one solution that works on both iOS devices and Android devices. Not the same code anyway. But what I am excited about is that you will have native support without a framework such as React Native. You don't need it if you have CSS Grid and service workers and all of this good stuff. In essence, you will have the standard being as powerful, even more powerful than what you can produce with these third-party libraries. And that's why I'm excited about CSS Grid. That's why I'm excited about service workers and all of this good stuff, because I really do think that they are the first steps towards web development breaking out of the browser and becoming a completely valid and most likely even more powerful approach to not only making web applications, but making native applications such as desktop applications and mobile applications. I honestly, sometimes I even ask myself if mobile native apps are going to, I wonder how they're going to fare against CSS Grid and service workers. I really do. And let's not even talk about WebAssembly. It's an interesting thought. But what I'm going to leave you with is this. With CSS Grid, service workers and so forth, and say Electron, you have the potential of creating, with just your web technologies, something that is more powerful than the native interfaces can. You cannot even approach the same level of productivity. At least from my experience, and in my personal opinion, I have never been this excited about being a web developer. Have a great day.